Welcome to Momming as a Millennial, the podcast where we explore the intersection of tradition and modern parenting. Have you ever felt overwhelmed trying to balance being a mom with your professional aspirations, all while dealing with side-eye from your parents who think you're doing it wrong? Me too. I'm your host, Christine Gerizzo, a journalist, blogger, and proud mama of 2 young children. I'm so glad you're here with me. Together, we can navigate the complexities of millennial motherhood and find what resonates with our true, authentic selves. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Momming as a Millennial. Today, we're going to be talking about all things concerning internet, social media, whether that's sharing information and pictures about our children on the internet, or once they get to a certain age and then they start navigating the internet and YouTube and social media and all that, and how we can help protect our children as parents, and then the types of conversations that we need to be having and the things that we can do right now for them to keep them safe. So I've been wanting to talk about this topic for a long time. It's something that is actually very important to me, and discussions that I've had with my family members about keeping our children off of the internet and protecting their privacy, but I haven't been able to find the right guest. And then today I finally have somebody wonderful who is an expert in that field and is going to be able to share all sorts of tidbits and information with us. So welcome, Professor Joana Gaia from University at Buffalo. I will provide her full title. So she is the Clinical Assistant Professor of Management, Science and Systems at University at Buffalo School of Management. So welcome.
It's a mouthful, thank you. It's a mouthful, yeah. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm super excited. This is near and dear to my heart, not only because I work a lot in the privacy and security area, but also because I am a mother. I have kids, so I've been navigating the whole privacy and sharing content for a couple of decades now.
So you're an expert on the personal level and the professional level. If you don't mind and you want to share a little bit about your personal life, your expertise, your experience, how you got to where you are, your favorite parts about your job, that type of stuff.
So even though I teach mostly in the analytical space, so I'm very quantitative based, it's a lot of math, a lot of numbers, and I've always been drawn to this area even before I became a professor. I've always been fascinated by issues of privacy and security, more from the user side rather than the technical side of it. So a lot of my research is actually in this space and seeing how people's perception of privacy or security mechanisms affect their online behavior. And then having kids just enhance that even more. Yeah. So I have 4 children. They range from 21 to 14.
Wow.
So they're all like scattered in there. But I've been navigating the whole online space for a while, and it's always been a concern of how much to share, what to share, and what conditions. And so even when they started engaging in online behavior, like playing games or downloading social media apps and TikToks and Instagrams and Snapchats, there's different nuances to each one of these that you kind of have to navigate almost on a one-by-one basis.
Yeah, that's stressful. Mine are little enough that they're just starting to like dabble in YouTube videos. Yeah. I don't know why that's so popular, but no social media or anything yet. So not looking forward to that. What kind of classes do you teach?
I teach classes in the data analytics space, typically the classes that would make people roll their eyes. So generally in like the statistics and advanced modeling areas. So there's a lot of math, but I try to make it more user-friendly.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. The ones that you need to graduate, right?
Yes.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about is posting pictures and information of our children online. And for me, I've always just personally been a very private person. So if I think about what if this technology was available when my parents were raising us, and if they were to have been posting pictures of me from the time I was a baby and then through your awkward middle school years and then high school and all of that, and anybody could go and, research me, how would I feel about that? And honestly, it makes my stomach turn. So I have always had a hard line of like, we're not sharing anything about our kids. And I probably veer very to that side of things as far as like having no exceptions. But yeah, I'm kind of curious from your perspective, what guidance should we be providing parents? Like, what is the right thing to do? Because I'm probably an extremist in that respect.
So I think I'm on the opposite spectrum of you.
Interesting.
And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, right? I think this is a very subjective matter.
Absolutely.
And I think it really depends on, first of all, how we live our lives. But I think you're definitely on the right track when you say, I think back to how I would feel if my parents had access to this and done this. And I think that's definitely something that parents should use to gauge what their behavior should be.
Okay.
Always think about, if it were me, would I be okay with this, to have this content posted out there? So for me, I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum of things, because I decided very early on, and I guess this was kind of forced to by circumstances, to share some of my kids' stuff and some of my life online, but in a very private manner. So I'm originally not from the United States. I'm the only one of my family and my husband's family that is here. So using social media, back in the day it was Facebook, was a way that we had to communicate with our extended network without having to personally call or email every single person in our contact list. So it was a way to share what the kids were up to, different activities that we were doing. So if we went to the pumpkin patch or apple picking or something like that, we would just post pictures. So my kids their faces have been on social media for a long time, but in a very private way. So I've always made sure that my networks are very deliberate to who I want to share this information with. And I do make an effort to every now and then go through those settings and see, does it make sense to still have these people, to still have this content out there? So this is not a static thing. It's very dynamic. And as long as people are aware of what the intention is, right? We have to think about, what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve with this? And then keep revisiting that goal and changing how you interact with social media and the internet and content websites to put your life out there, basically. Typically, when people ask about this, the advice that I give is, I always say, think about your personal circumstances. I think it's very important to think about, what am I getting out of this? What do I want, right? Typically, people post things online because they want validation. So are there other ways that you can get that validation? And so try to navigate it that way.
That makes a lot of sense. When you say you're making sure that your network is, small, it's just the people you want, secure, and reviewing settings, how do we know that like our private account is really private? And I struggle too with the people on the opposite end of that. What are they doing with that information or their photos? And like, how do we know if they're not sharing it beyond what you're comfortable with?
You don't know. You have no way to control other people's behavior,
Of course,
right? So
yeah.
there's nothing is stopping anybody in your network to take screenshots or
Right.
snap the content that you post and then repost it. But I think that when we create an online network, it's for a purpose. And we should engage in the same vetting behavior as we do in our personal lives. We all have friends, we all have family members, and we're not equally as close to all our friends, right? So some friends we're closer with and we share more of our private lives, and other friends are more on the acquaintance side of the spectrum where we don't share a lot of that. And so when we build these networks online, we should follow the same guidelines, and you can tailor who in those subcircles of your online community, you can tailor who you share your information with. So if it's pictures of your kids, I don't know, playing around at home and showing their faces, and they're maybe in their pajamas and their hair is all in a mess, then maybe you do that with your very close family and super knit close circle of friends. But if it's something more general, if you went to a pumpkin farm, or if it's a recital at school when there's a lot of people snapping pictures and the content is more likely to be disseminated, then you can expand your circles that way. So it's really about managing your online life in a similar manner, or using the same guiding principles that you use in your personal life.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I don't think a lot of people really look at it through that lens. That's really good advice. What kind of risks are there out there for sharing, photos, information? I'll use the example. Every year I usually see somebody post, either it's like a police station or some sort of safety organization will post about not sharing that first day of school picture holding the board, and it has your child's name and their teacher and their age and all of that, and like keep that information private because it could be used in nefarious ways. And then I see tons of parents sharing those pictures with the boards and their kids' personal information on there. So just one example, I mean, what kind of risks are there and what kind of information do you not share?
There's always risks, right? And the more detail you provide, the easier it is to establish a profile, a data profile on someone,
Right.
whether it's a child or an adult, right? And if you think back, like your security questions when you create an account for something, right? It's what was your pet's name when you were in elementary school? What was your third grade teacher's name? And stuff like that. So this is the kind of information that if a bad actor wanted to, it would be easy to get if you're sharing that kind of stuff, right? So posting school names, teachers' names, your kids' names, even something like a house number behind those pictures, right? Or a license plate of a car that's parked on the street and you don't even think about it. Just knowing what state you're in, what region of the state you're in, allows you to dig in and to find a lot more information about a person. But we also have to look at it from a bad actor perspective, right? So the amount of effort, yes, those things can be used for potentially identity theft or something like that, but the amount of effort that it takes to go through this process is heavy lifting. And typically bad actors in this space, they want to explore vulnerabilities where they can get a return on their time investment fast. And this is not that case, because if you go through this whole process, it can take days to steal the identity of one person.
Right.
There's limited financial gain from that. And typically when we talk about bad actors in the cyberspace, there's always financial gain. That's the motivation for everything that we use. And so when you think about that, the actual risk is kind of limited. And there's no difference in terms of exposure, right? If you're looking at a more personal thing, there's no more risk in exposure in that sense than there is from, I don't know, having your kid play outside, whether it's at the playground or on your street or in the neighborhood, because there could be bad actors anywhere and somebody could be looking at your child or surveilling your behavior in some way, shape, or form, right? So yes, there's a concern with that, but I don't think that your awareness should be heightened because you're in an online space or anything like that, because the threat level is not that significant. Yes, we hear about cases, but the reason why we hear about them is because they're so far and few between. And if you think about it, like how many people's identities are stolen every day, and it's not because somebody's posting a picture on their first day on the job on Instagram or Facebook. Right. Typically, it's because there's data that was stolen from a big database, and then it's shared in that way. So when we look at individual data points, they lose value if they're not aggregated. So I'm a little bit more relaxed with those concerns.
But you have very valid reasoning. And I'm starting to rethink a lot of things already. We're just at the beginning. Yeah. So obviously, when kids get to a certain age and they understand privacy and they can ask, like I've heard this from friends who have older kids, and they're like, don't post that or stop posting pictures about me. When they get to that point, I mean, how do you handle that? they should obviously have a say in how their picture is being shared on the internet, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Just like if an adult asks me, don't post that, don't share that,
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to respect that. So why would I not respect my own children in that sense, right? So I feel like once they're old enough to understand, then I think the roles are kind of reversed. I don't think it should be kids asking parents not to post. I think that should come from parents to respect those wishes and to understand what the boundaries are. And then I think the roles shift in the sense that now we have to control what they post and what
Right.
they share and kind of guide them through this education process of what's safe and what's not safe, where the risks could be, so that they can make their own informed decisions.
Right. I think sometimes it's a little overwhelming to share with family and friends where your boundaries might be. Do you have, or even like with a child to a parent trying to establish a boundary, do you have any advice on how to handle those conversations or the types of things that should definitely be discussed?
Yes, I am a big believer that there's no difference in offline life and online life. I'm a big proponent of that. And I think if you engage in this journey with that in mind, it makes it a lot easier. Because if you establish boundaries in your own personal space, right? If you're at home, and it's an example that I used to give to my kids all the time, people have different boundaries. And as we navigate life, we navigate those boundaries with other kids, with adults in different environments. And I usually used to say, hey, in my house, you don't jump on the couch. You might go to grandma's house and grandma might be okay with you jumping on the couch, right? So it's learning about those differences in boundaries and different circumstances. I think when we start to engage in online behavior, it's very important that kids get that perspective, because a lot of the times I think that kids are carried into this participation in online lives because they're engaging in the same behavior as their peers.
Right.
And so, oh, I'm doing this because my friend is doing this. I want to do makeup tutorials because my friend is doing makeup tutorials. But it's no different than, if you think about it, what would you do if you were offline? Would you sit at your kitchen table and do a makeup tutorial with your friend? If you would, then it's totally fine, right? It's really about having kids develop a critical thinking capacity about not just trigger movement of posting, of engaging, but really thinking about, why are you doing this on a deeper level? What are you getting out of it? We do things because we get something in return. So what do you want in return from this?
Yeah.
Is it validation? Is it somebody to tell you that you're doing a good job? Or are you trying to teach someone something? Is it an educational activity, for example? And I think that helps a lot to filter out what should be and what shouldn't be posted.
So your family rule is if it's for validation, you shouldn't be posting it?
No, go get validation somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
If you want a pat
think
on the
that's
back
great,
from your
yeah.
friend, if you want to do it for somebody to laugh at your jokes, then invite a bunch of your friends over and just spend an afternoon telling jokes and laughing. There's no reason to be posting stuff about yourself online. If you want the engagement, if you want the friends and the likes and the thumbs ups, right? Then do that in person.
Yeah.
It's a lot more rewarding,
Right.
and the reward feeling lasts a lot longer.
Wow, I really like that. So talking about when children are old enough to start engaging in the internet and social media, I mean, the entire game changes. I was laughing because I was thinking about my first experiences, and it was AOL Messenger on our big chunky computer in the
Yeah.
dining room with everybody walking
Yes.
by, and there was no privacy. And
And
which-
somebody picking up the phone and
Yeah,
making the
it-
internet drop.
kicking me off and starting the process over. And then I was in college when Facebook came out. And so you needed the college email address to participate in Facebook. And I remember at the time, because it was so new, our professors were telling us, they were like putting the fear of God into us that if you post something out there, you're never going to get a job if it's questionable, or you won't get into, the master's degree that you want or the next level of education, and no one's going to want to hire you if you're posting questionable stuff with you in a beer bong and all of that. So I've had that thought process about the internet from the very beginning, that it's a scary place and you shouldn't be putting anything, which is, I mean, obviously that's coming through loud and clear as to how I operate with my family and my children. But children now who are growing up with it, they don't have that fear.
But they should.
Right. Yeah. I don't think they understand. So how do we protect them and make sure they understand what could happen? Or I hate to say that we want to scare them, but at the same time,
Well, we learn through fear too, right?
yeah.
It's lessons learned. And I think that as long as they understand that for every action, there's a consequence, then again, they have to apply that critical thinking to learn from a very young age to balance. Even when they're younger and they first start posting, if you post something bad about your friend and it's out there, your friend's going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And that could change the dynamic of a whole group of friends. And this carries on into adulthood. But the networks are different. It's not friends, it's professional networks. But just like they do nowadays, and this is, I tell my kids this a lot, you find out about someone, like when my kids first went to college and they found out who they were going to have as roommates. These people were strangers. The first thing they did was go on Instagram and search for their roommate's Instagram to have an idea of who their friends are.
Mm-hmm.
And if their Instagram profiles are public and you see the images, that's going to affect the image that you have of that person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if the roommates are in high school and posting pictures with the beer bongs or doing questionable behavior, that makes you go into this relationship already with kind of a pebble in your shoe, being more cautious. And if you take that to a professional level where you have a choice, then you might say, I don't think this is a person that I want in my professional network.
Right.
I don't think this is a person that I want to hire for a job, right? Just like you could say when you're looking at these profiles, I don't think this is a person that I want in my circle of friends. We can be roommates, but I don't want to engage with you outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no different. I think it's easier for kids to understand the repercussions and the consequences of this if you can create analogies that are similar, that will, in different circumstances, but the example is the same at different stages of life.
Mm-hmm. Do you have particular guidelines or ages that you think it's appropriate for kids? Is it based on maturity for them to start dabbling in the internet or social media?
I think it's maturity. I think it's family dynamics. I think it's habits. Kids learn through our behavior. They mimic adults' behavior. And so I think that if our own personal behavior as mothers is to not be on our phones all the time when we're at home and we're engaging in, I don't know, making dinner and involving everybody or watching a movie or playing a game or going for a walk, that's the behavior that the kids are going to learn. And I think that taking away and prohibiting the use of things that everybody's using
Mm-hmm.
can lead to really unhealthy behaviors, because now you're attaching a stigma to something that all of their friends have and they want to, but they can't. So I think whether it's YouTube videos or whatever, if you say, hey, there's time for that, just like there's time for reading and there's time for walking and time for playing or doing whatever, it's just another piece of their routine. It's just another device that they engage with, right? If you create that stigma when they're little, if you start creating that stigma around a microwave or something, then that's what they will want to do. And so I feel like sometimes parents will say, oh, I'm going to take this away. And I saw this happening when my oldest, who's now in his early 20s, when they started engaging, they used to have the Nintendos, like the handheld gaming systems.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my cousins has a son who's just a little bit older than my oldest son, and she was struggling with this. And one piece of advice she gave me was, she said, never say no, never say 100% no and take it away. Because what happens now is every time we go to a party or we go somewhere, a gathering where another kid has that device, if he gets his hand on it, he's all in.
Yeah.
He doesn't engage, he doesn't interact. And I think it makes it really difficult to give the child an opportunity to self-regulate the behavior with electronic devices. I mean, some people engage more, some people engage less, so it's really different.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. With my son especially, he has the iPad, he likes Minecraft and YouTube, and I just put a time limit on it. I'm like, you can use this for 20 minutes, and then we move on to the next thing. Is that...
Yeah.
That's better than saying no?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure, yes. In
Sometimes I want to say no.
And it's my opinion, right?
Right, of course.
But I think so when you say I want to say no, why do you want to say no, right? What's the goal in that? And if you think, okay, now's not a good time because we're going to do something else and he's going to be engaged in another activity. Because if we say no just because we know that too much screen time is not good.
Well, that's what we're
told. But then they're just sitting there doing nothing, right? So if the objective is learn to deal with boredom and not use devices to break boredom, then we have to guide them into that direction and say, hey, I mean, a little white lie doesn't hurt. And sometimes, right, to say, hey, sorry, I forgot to charge the iPad.
Yeah, right.
There's no battery. How about you find something else to do while we wait for it to charge? How about you go draw a picture or build a fort out of couch pillows or something, right?
Them.
And then that helps them redirect their attention instead of focusing and taking it almost as a punishment when it's not. So it's kind of taking away the stigma of the use of the devices as an end-all be-all.
Yeah, and I think it is the concern of how much screen time, and that's been hammered into our heads since my kids were babies. The pediatrician started talking about it. So how do we navigate that?
I think you also have to think back. So if you look back 20 years ago, the content that was out there was a lot different than it is now, right? And when we first started getting exposed to social media or YouTube, the amount of educational content that was available was very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays we can actually shift and use these platforms for educational purposes. And while it's not good to have a kid attached to a TV or an iPad all day, if they're just watching mindless videos or playing Minecraft for hours on end, which, by the way, I love Minecraft and the premise of it. We actually use Minecraft in our graduate classes for project management because Minecraft really makes you think about things. Like you have to plan your space. You have to think about what you're going to build, how you're going to achieve those things. So it's not as mindless as it looks.
Yeah.
But you have to think, what are they gaining from this? Having a kid on, I don't know, Miss Rachel, I think is the big thing right now. Having a kid on Miss Rachel for 2 or 3 hours is no different than having a kid in a classroom setting for 2 or 3 hours. Yes, you miss the social interaction and the interpersonal engagement. That part is lost. But in terms of content that the child is consuming, it's really no different. So I think we really have to stop with everything, every tool, every video, every game. Really think about what are they getting out of this? How is this good? How is this bad? And moving away from those stereotypes that, like you said, the pediatrician was like, screen time is bad.
Yeah.
No, none of this.
Yeah.
And kind of thinking, but why? Questioning a little bit more what our goal is in all of this.
I'm already feeling a ton better about my parenting. I swear. And I talk to so many other mothers who are like, oh, I feel so guilty. Or we were at the restaurant and, my son just wouldn't settle down. So I put on Miss Rachel. Or my friends just went to Florida and they were on the plane and they said we went as long as we could. And then we gave our son the iPad, and it's like, you got to do what you got to do. Do you want to be stressed out on a plane with a screaming kid?
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
One thing that guided me through when my kids were small, because like I said, I'm not from the United States, so I started traveling with my kids when they were days old, literally.
Oh.
So being on planes for long periods of time is kind of part of how they grew up, and being in environments where if we're visiting family, it's almost like a party every day, and you go to restaurants and you're here and you're there. And one thing that I did for my family was I had a rule that when you're in situations like that, whether you're on a plane or at Disney or at a party or environments like that, that's not a place where you want to parent your children. Those are not parenting situations. Those are exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So you do what you have to do to survive the plane ride. And if that means them being on the iPad for 7 hours in a row when they typically wouldn't be, then so be it. Because there's no there's no parenting output that comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
They gain nothing in terms of guidance from you as a parent for you saying, no, you're going to sit on this plane for 7 hours and stare at the back of the seat in front of you, right? There's nothing to be gained there. And there's nothing to be gained for us as parents either, because it's just more stress, right? It's kind of like a vicious cycle. It just cascades and snowballs into conflict or a stressful situation with no need.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there's a time and a place for everything.
Oh, I just heard a collective sigh from every parent that I know. Because you're right. And we're so hard on ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing to hear. That clip is probably going to go viral. Watch. Are there resources available that parents could go to on the internet to help? I know you mentioned that all social media apps are different. So where do we go to figure out how to put parental controls on things, how to monitor different social media apps and interactions?
It's a learning process and it never stops, ever.
It's just like a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, you really have to go in. Luckily now we have, if you think back, like you said, when I was in college when Facebook first started, right? I usually tell my students, hey, I graduated without Google. Right? But luckily for us, now we have these search engines and all you have to do is literally sit on a computer and search how to put parental controls on Snapchat or Instagram or whatever it may be. And so it is a learning process and it never stops. You have to adapt and continuously evolve, but you do have to learn. Like TVs have them nowadays. Phones have them. There's even dedicated devices. Like when kids are younger, you can actually get phones that have a lot less permissions in terms of the apps that they can handle or the content that they can handle, where kids can't download their own stuff as easily. So you really can control it that way. But with kids growing and technology changes, we have to do it too. We have to keep revisiting, keep changing those controls, and keep having the conversations with the kids. I think that's the most important thing, is really making kids aware that I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm doing this to protect you, and giving them examples and alternatives, because sometimes things aren't good. And even for us adults, we're put in situations that we might not like. But we think about, okay, but what's at the end of this? Is there a reward or do I have an alternative? And so it's really about navigating this space in the same way that we navigate anything in life. I don't want to go to the doctor and get my flu shot this year. But hey, there's something at the end of it, right? Maybe we go for hot chocolate or something or a donut or whatever it may be. That's how we navigate these uncomfortable situations, and really making them understand that sometimes they have to happen. But online, it's the same thing.
We just had the flu shot issue. And I said, well, you want to be sick or?
Hey, do you want a really good trick for shots for kids? Before they get their shot, if they press their tongue on the roof of their mouth as hard as they possibly can, the nerve stimulation on the roof of your mouth disrupts the pain signals and it makes it hurt a lot less.
That's so
and it works.
Interesting.
You try it for yourself next time you get a shot or you have something painful happening. Press your tongue to the roof of your mouth as hard as you can.
Huh. Wow.
Yep.
Man, you are a wealth of knowledge. Yeah, so kind of what you're saying about maintaining, in the physical world, the same rules and how you would act in the online world. I literally just had a coworker talking about how she thought it was ridiculous that a lot of parents and collectively millennials, we micromanage what our children are doing in the physical world. Like we won't let them ride their bikes away or play on the street, and we're monitoring them if they're in our backyard when they're younger. She was like, but parents don't seem to care what their kids are doing online. And I was like, wow, that is really true. We're not viewing those two as the same things.
Or you could have the opposite, right? You have parents micromanaging kids' behavior online and on their devices, but then once the kid gets on their bike and rides off, you have no idea where they are or what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
that's how it was when we were kids. Yeah, I think that's so interesting that that's exactly what you're saying, is to treat them the same. So along those lines, how do we teach kids consent online the same way that we teach them physical bodily consent?
I think that whenever it comes to consent or anything that has to do with their behavior or how they act towards other people or other people towards them, you always have to make it relatable. So you always have to go approach it from, how would you feel if this happened to you? If you're posting something, it might seem innocuous, but somebody else might not take it as a joke. So if the roles were reversed, how would you feel about it? And really pushing them to take the first step into mitigating these things. If something happened, and yes, if you did something that hurt other people, because we do this in everyday life, then go and apologize. Go and say sorry. Try to make that other person feel better. It's no different when they say at school, don't do this to me, I don't like this, then the same thing happens online. And if you don't want to be exposed to that kind of behavior, then that's where their own control comes in and say, okay, I have an online network now. And if there's somebody that acts in a way that I don't like, then remove them from your network, because that's what you do in real life.
Right.
If you have a person that doesn't engage with you in the way that respects your personal boundaries, you remove them from your circle of friends or the network that you associate with. So online, it's no different. If you can't respect my boundaries, if you can't respect how I want to be treated, then you don't belong in my online circle. I don't have to be friends with everybody, because when I go to school, I'm not friends with all of the kids that go to school with me. And it's the same thing.
It's a really easy way to explain it to a child. I think I covered everything on that. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was AI, so artificial intelligence, and how that just seems to complicate everything, in my opinion. The deep fakes are getting better and better. It's really hard to tell the difference between what is real, what is fake. I got sucked down a rabbit hole not too long ago about the disaster videos, because I first saw it looked like there was a girl in a bounce house, and then the father went to grab her, and the next thing you know, he pulled her right in time, and then the bounce house went up in a tornado, and I was like, what did I just see? And then I went and watched it again. I was like, oh, clearly that's AI, but it definitely captured my attention. And then I heard that that's the new thing. They're just creating all these natural disaster AI videos. And some of it is really believable.
Yeah.
So what are the risks that AI poses now on the internet, especially
I think
terms of our
that
children?
the risk with AI is now that the models are trained based on your inputs, right? So when we're on social media, whether it's Instagram, even YouTube with kids, TikTok, whatever it may be, the algorithm that people talk about is nothing more than a mathematical model that learns just like your kids learn when they're little. These models, and that's why it's called artificial intelligence, because it mimics the way that our human intelligence works. They learn by patterns. So if you give these mathematical models patterns, they learn to identify that pattern and then they mimic it. So when kids are online, whether it's TikTok or YouTube or whatever it is, they get sucked into this spiral of content that is learning from the pattern of the content that they previously watched. So if you watch that video that you were saying, oh, the kid in the bounce house flew off, the dad. After that, you probably saw 3 or 4 more that were similar to those.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never seen any of those videos. I might now that we're talking about it and our phones are listening. But I did watch a lot of the bears and the moose and the trampolines in the backyard.
Yeah.
So I had tons of those. And I think it's because these models, so the algorithm, like people say, it's really a mathematical algorithm, and it learns from that behavior to show you what it thinks you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's incredibly important when kids interact with these to give them some control over the content that they're exposed to, right? You see it on the news when people say, oh, AI advised a kid to hurt themselves.
Right.
And tragedies have happened, unfortunately. But I think if kids understand why this is happening, they can take the power to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important that they understand that artificial intelligence is artificial and it's not as intelligent as human beings, and we still have the power to break that cycle of behavior. And this happened at my house with my youngest daughter. I noticed that she went into a spiral of negative content. And it's easy when the kids are teenagers. There's a lot of insecurity about the way they look, that awkward middle school phase, and whether it's, I don't know, acne or weird growth spurts or the clothes that they wear, whatever it may be. There's a lot of insecurity. It's normal. It's part of growing up.
Right.
And I saw that she was kind of getting dragged into content that was pushing her that way. And so I challenged her and I said, hey, I have an assignment for you. I want you to every day specifically look for and watch at least 5 positive feeds, 5 positive videos. And then I want you to do this every day for a week. And then at the end of the week, we're going to see what your feed looks like, what your For You page, what the algorithm gives you. And so this really showed her that she has some control over this.
Wow.
This is how we can set boundaries to the content that we're exposed. We can't do it physically. There's no settings that say, I don't want to see this or I don't want to see that.
Right.
But the way that you interact with this content dictates what other content you're going to be exposed to. And so I think it's incredibly important that kids learn that they can, that power is theirs. It doesn't belong to TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it is. They can control what they're exposed to.
Wow. So how did you know what she was watching? I'm just curious.
Because and I'm a big advocate of this, people say, oh, you shouldn't, you have to respect their privacy. But I said, your devices are really not yours, they're mine because I paid for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I pay for the cell phone bills, I pay for the internet bill, so they're my devices in reality. And so I get to see what's on them. And when they first started having social media, I said, if you want to have an Instagram account, I have to be your friend on Instagram. If you want to have a TikTok account, I want to be your friend on TikTok and be able to see what you post. It's very, very hard, but I was very careful. And I don't think I got it right all the time. We mess up as parents. We do the best we can. But it was every day an exercise of how much is too far. So where does the invasion of their privacy and my parenting, right? It's not clear lines. It's blurry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to navigate. Okay, how far do you go? And where does the parenting stop? And it's snooping more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I feel like it's not snooping even if you're looking at everything, you really have to think about what is it that I want to address? What is the danger here? And is this an issue that I have to talk about or not? Because there's things that they do, things that they say that I'm not, like when they go 6'7", 6'7", don't be posting that on the internet because you look stupid. But at the same time, all the kids are doing it. And
Yeah.
in reality, is that parenting? Maybe it's not. So maybe I see that. I don't agree with it, but I keep it to myself.
Right.
And I think that way you're kind of respecting their boundaries. You don't bring it up. And slowly, as they grow and as they start to navigate and you help them navigate this world and to what's acceptable and what's not, then you can start to relax that supervision a little bit more.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions. How do you balance privacy with parental control and making sure that they're not
It's
getting
hard.
themselves
It's
into
very
something?
hard. Yeah.
But that's a really
Yeah.
good way to look at it. And I do like what you said about, you don't like it, but you keep it to yourself. Because
Yeah.
I think that is important. Even in just regular daily life, my kids will do stuff and I'm like, just don't say anything. Just
Wait until they want to get tattoos and they're over 18 and they can.
Yeah. Then what can you say? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, with AI, it's just changing so quickly. And I think recently I've heard a lot more about using children's voices and calling parents and trying to get ransom, or using baby child photos in AI generated content that could be harmful. Like, what is your thought on that? Because that's getting pulled from somewhere.
But it doesn't have to, though. That's the thing. You don't need a baby picture of one of your kids to generate anything. Like these images, the baby pictures, there's already data out there that train these models. So these models are already capable of creating a baby picture without you giving it any picture. Or they can take one of your pictures, for example, and your kid's dad and say, hey, these two people had a kid, and it might end up looking similar to one of your kids. So I think it's very important that adults as parents understand how AI models work, and also that kids understand how AI models work. This content is being generated by data that we feed it. And so I think the bad thing about it is that right now, when kids use artificial intelligence, or even us, we'll go on ChatGPT and we'll ask it the most preposterous things ever. We're testing its limits. We're seeing how far we can go. And when kids do it, the things that they ask AI to describe are completely different than what we would think is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
But the idea is that we're using it, we're engaging it for fun. Well, the problem is that all of this is being fed into these models and creating patterns that do not mimic normal human behavior, but that's what we're showing that normal human behavior is. You can't have an AI model. I mean, you could on your computer, but if you want to run something locally and don't want your data shared when you're using these AI things,
Right.
you'd need a very powerful computer for it to create good results, to generate good stuff. And so we don't, right? We send it to somewhere where those computers are, and that's where our data is processed. But once we send those prompts in, whether it's a picture or text or whatever, it's out there.
Yeah.
And so I think that if people understand how all this works, it makes it a lot easier to gain that control back, to make sure that artificial intelligence does not replace human intelligence. We have a say in it. We can control it. We can always pull the plug and say, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to use this anymore. And so, yes, there's a risk that images could be generated with our likeness, even without us contributing anything to it. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it, because when it's out there, it's out there. And I think that it's your offline behavior that will dictate the veracity of that, right? So I don't know if anybody that knows me knows that I hate coconut. So if you generate a video of me eating, I don't know, a Bounty bar or some other coconut candy, everybody that knows me offline knows that that has to be a fabrication. That is not true, because I would not do that. So it's really making sure that how you behave offline and in your real life helps dictate the veracity of what's put out there or not.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately.
And that's the scary part.
Yeah.
Do you think that AI can be good? Because when I was preparing for this episode, I read that AI could actually improve online safety for children through algorithms by removing inappropriate images and videos.
Yeah. So you can set guardrails. And now even the social media platforms like YouTube, they work on AI models. They have like in the background to use what's called your algorithm, right?
Mm-hmm.
To give you your FYP and your content suggestions. They work off of these artificial intelligence models. So you can go in and you can actually tweak it and say, hey, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see that. But just like anything else, this evolves so fast that those controls are kind of easy to bypass on the back end of things. So if there's a bad actor, somebody with bad intentions, they could easily navigate into that space. It's not something there's a clear boundary that's cut, but it's something that's done incrementally. And you see that with stuff that we read on the news, that voice modulators, they use kids' voices to pretend that they're the same age as your kids when they're interacting online. And so it's something that slowly builds and muddies those boundaries and kind of pushes and pushes and pushes until they can get into your safe space, so to say. So yeah, it's very hard to control, but I think what's scary for parents like you or like me is that this is not native to us. We didn't grow up with this, right? We had to learn the internet and we had to learn social media, but that's a lot more part of our lives. And it's something that's natural, that's just there. If you ask your parents how they feel about social media and how they felt about social media when it first appeared, their opinions are probably similar to what yours are now in relation to artificial intelligence.
Gotcha.
Just like we navigate this social media thing, if we navigate artificial intelligence in the same way, this is something that for our kids will always have been there.
Yeah.
It's new for us, but for them, it's something that they're going to grow up with. So just like we had to understand how Facebook works when it first popped up, and for us, Facebook is no water off our backs. That's what artificial intelligence tools are going to be for our kids. Just like we were able to learn how Facebook works and how the first social media websites worked, they are learning that. And it's just a matter of trying to accompany that as they move forward.
You mentioned about mimicking children's voices when they're interacting with your children. That's one of, honestly, my biggest fears is bad actors pretending to be children and interacting with my children and then having that escalate to something scary.
That was, for me, probably one of the scariest things when my kids started engaging in online activities. And the rule that I have is if you don't know that person in real life, that person cannot be part of your online circle. So your online circle has to be made of people that you know exist, people that you go to school with, people that you've seen in person. If they're not in your in-person circle, then they can't be in your online circle. And it's very hard to control those interactions because they'll go like on these servers to play, and then there's the chats.
Right.
And I would monitor those. And I would ask, because they pick weird names for each other. They have like their nicknames and avatars and stuff. So I would ask, who's that? Is that somebody that goes to school with you? And I would monitor the conversations. If they were playing, I would just pop in and be like, okay, open up the chat and let me see.
Yeah, and that was just the expectation.
Yeah, it's the expectation. It's, listen, if you want to use this, if you want to be online playing Minecraft on a server with a bunch of other people, then part of it is me coming in and monitoring what you're doing. And if there's any indication that you're trying to delete messages or engage in things that I don't agree with you, then you lose your privileges to use this game or to participate in whatever it is. It's a trust. It's the same thing, right? If you say, can I go to my friends and play, and you have to be home at 4, right? What happens if you don't respect the curfew? Then you lose your privileges.
Right.
This is no different.
I had one time a college professor, again, this is like right when Facebook came out, tell me that even if you delete something off the internet, it's still always there. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere out there?
Yes, somewhere out there. Because everything we put on the internet, so the way that the internet works, right, like World Wide Web, it is because it's a web of connections. And with all the things that are connected, for there to be this permanency of the data that we're looking for, a lot of the times data is replicated. I mean, if you go like, I don't know, on a news web page, you want to see what the news was today on the Channel 2 or Channel 4 or whatever news website. If the computer that has the website stored on it crashes, they can't have a whole newspaper or a whole news station go offline. So there's multiple copies and they're all connected on the internet. And so with the stuff that we put out there is no different.
Mm-hmm.
How likely are people to find it? I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, we have a little bit more control with things that came out of the European Union and the guardrails that they set in data protection and privacy, where you have the right to be forgotten. But this is only for online interactions in the European Union space. So how do you control what's outside? There's a little bit more control, but I also think that we have more control than we think. We just don't know how to get to it.
Right.
Because you can delete your Instagram account or your Facebook account. The problem is that a lot of times we try to do this and we have the option to deactivate and not delete. It's not that it's impossible. It's just hard to get to. We have to learn, and it puts the effort on us as users.
Yeah.
And the reason why this happens is because that's how they make money. They monetize off of your data. Once you put your data out there, it can be sold. Every time you create an account on any kind of, whatever it may be, typically your information is sold between 20 and 30 times for every account that you create. And you don't have any control over that. Because if you want to use these things, then the bad side of it is that you're giving away your information. Your information and your behavior, how many times you click on something, even on Amazon, right? You go on Amazon, how many products, if you look for something and then it suggests other products and then other people bought this, how many times do you click? How many times do you buy? Do you go back to it? All of this engagement, all of this behavior is monetized. So there's no incentive to allow you to delete your presence.
Right.
And that's why when you want, even just to find information, you can't get an insurance quote online nowadays without having to put all your information. You can say, I want insurance for my car. This is how old it is. This is the model that it is. No, you have to put your email address, your name, your phone number, because that's how they monetize that information. They can call you. They can say, hey, we've got a special rate for you. And if that doesn't work, now they have your demographics. They can sell your information to data brokers.
Yeah, and whenever you're clicking that box that says, I agree to the terms and conditions that you didn't read.
Yeah.
It's giving...
Yeah, it's on purpose. And even if you do take the time to read them, right?
Yeah.
Then you're put in a situation where, am I really willing to give up what I'm looking for the sake of protecting my information that's already out there?
Yeah, exactly. That everyone else has. Yeah. Well, that kind of goes into the topic of data collection and your digital footprint, because that's exactly what you're saying. All that information is out there. It's creating like an online profile for you, and then it's just being sold over and over again. I know the answer to this question. Like, how do we stop that from happening? How do we stop our data from being collected? And we don't, right?
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
Even when you engage in, like when you go to the doctor and you have to sign like the information exchanges platform consent, right? That data is very valuable. But on the flip side of it, we're getting a benefit to that, where we have all our medical information centralized, and that could bring good things, because now you don't have to go to a specialist and explain everything you did and bring your record. Everything's right there. So there's always a cost and a benefit, right? So yes, in the online space, people are more aware of this. I think we're more aware of it because it's something new, but I'll ask you something. Where do you shop for groceries? Do you go to Tops or Wegmans or something like that?
Wegmans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a Wegmans Shoppers Club card?
Yes.
It's no different, right? They know where you live. They know your phone number. They know how old you are. They know how many kids you have. They know how much money you spend on groceries. They know exactly what products you buy. They know how frequently you buy those products. So there's a lot that can be learned from that, right?
Yeah.
And the thing with data is that, yes, the data can really identify us and profile us, whether it's through Shoppers Rewards Club or whatever it is. So the incentive that they give you for you to give them your information is, hey, now you can buy 2 for the price of 1
Right.
or get a 50-cent discount or coupons or whatever. But for them, your personal information by itself has no value. It's only when they put all of their customers' information together that the value comes in. So typically, data points by themselves have very little value. It's when you aggregate all of that that you can monetize that information, because now they're seeing that, hey, all of the people in this age group that have kids respond really well to whatever product, right? Like, I don't know, for me, when my kids were little, the next thing to slice bread was the squeezy
Oh,
yogurts. How
yes,
can
the
I get them to eat
pouches.
yogurts
Yeah.
without the spoon and the cup? And so if you think about that, then if there's a product that maybe doesn't sell as well, they're like, oh, hey, but if you buy this, you can get this for half off. And now you're more inclined to buy it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's really the aggregate that comes together. And I think that if we start to look at the data that we provide and really thinking of this giving and taking, yes, I'm giving you my personal information. Is it worth the convenience of having suggestions on Amazon? Is it worth it to have things shipped to my doorstep the next day instead of having to go out and looking for them?
Yeah.
And really, a lot of the times we're trading our data for convenience. And so when you take this further and you go into social media or AI space, I think people get more concerned because it's harder to see where that convenience is coming from,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can scroll on TikTok for 2 hours. Yeah, maybe you're not bored, you get some entertainment, but it's harder for us to see the value that we get from that. And so because of that, we're more aware of what data is this that you're collecting. When
Yeah.
in other circumstances, we're total hypocrites and
Yeah.
we
I
don't
don't
even
care.
think
Yeah.
about it because the convenience outweighs all the negative. But the data's already out there. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And honestly, I don't think twice about like putting my email in for a 15% off coupon or like a first user type of thing on any
yeah,
sort of website.
yeah. And nowadays you have to do your phone number too. So
Yeah, I know. The other thing I wanted to talk about was geotagging
Mhm.
and hidden metadata in photos, because this is a fairly new concept for me. How does it work really? And is it a dangerous thing to know exactly where you
It
are
could
based on a
be, right?
picture?
Especially if there's people that are out there looking for patterns. So typically, what I will say is you don't want to share more than you would in other circumstances. So if we went back to printed pictures times, you could say to someone, oh, I took this last week at a soccer game at this field, or we went apple picking here at this orchard,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you narrow down the circle of people that have access to that information, then you're kind of okay. It's about learning those settings. I think that people don't often realize how much information is carried in messages and videos and
Yeah,
pictures that we send or even that we post that
yeah,
have more information than the actual image that we're sharing. So just like with the parental controls, you really have to make a conscious effort to think about, what am I sharing? What is being collected? How can I stop it? It's up to us to learn about these things and to really dive in. And for that, we need to kind of stop, take a little bit of a step back, and from the convenience of everything being so immediate and really thinking about what else could be in here. So turn off your location if you don't need, like we all have our locations on our phones because we all use Waze or Google Maps or Apple
Yeah.
Maps, some things to get around, but really take the time to go through all of the settings for all of the apps. There's some apps that have no need to collect information from you. Another rule that I typically follow is if I use social media to share my life and my kids' lives and what we're doing with extended family or friends that are geographically further away from us, and this is very convenient, then do I need to share it at the time that it happens?
Right.
Sometimes we take pictures because they're so cute
Yeah.
and we want to share them right away and post them right away. If you get into the habit of not posting right away, let it cool down a little bit. Maybe tomorrow you'll feel differently and you're like, oh, yeah, it was cute, but not worth posting. And if you go on vacation, then maybe not everybody needs to know that there's nobody at your house.
I know. I'm such a stickler about that. We go on vacation with another family, and I'm like, nobody post anything till we get back.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to know we're not home.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Right? If you limit the audiences that are looking at this, right?
Yeah.
And if when you go with another family, if they post, you can't control what their network is seeing.
Right.
But if you are close enough to go on vacation with them, then that means that they probably have similar feelings towards the way you live life as you do, right? So you can kind of trust that their network is a good network. Because if it wasn't, then maybe those weren't the people that you'd be close with enough to go on vacation. So I think everything really comes down to just comparing offline and online life. And I think drawing that parallel, it's not a different life. It's the same life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And people treat it like two completely different lives.
So I think if you do that, then don't share your locations, turn your metadata off, control the audiences that are exposed to your posts. Who's looking at this? It's create your circle and manage it that way. And I think with all of this that we learn, it's very important that our kids are aware of this. It's not like a magical creature and things that, oh, this is just for grown-ups to understand. Really try to find a way to explain to them that there's metadata in everything we do, that there's information about stuff that we might not think about. And if you bring this to examples from their day-to-day life, right? So if you say, I don't know, let's say that lunch was a ham and cheese sandwich at the cafeteria, and the friend opens up the sandwich and takes out the cheese. You don't think anything of it, but there's data behind that. There's information behind that. Maybe they're lactose intolerant, or maybe they just don't like cheese, but they don't need to tell you that they don't like cheese for you to learn that about them. And so it's the same thing with the pictures. Tell them, I take a picture of you on your first day of school. You're in the driveway. My car's behind you. Now you know that we're in New York State.
Yeah.
So this helps them understand, again, the parallel between the offline and the online. And sometimes when we post stuff, there's hidden data behind it. It's really about educating your kids and understanding. Once you understand how something works, explain it to them. Because if they understand how things work, they're more likely to accept that advice because they can understand why you're saying you can't do this or you can't do that. If it's just a rule like a hard no, they don't understand. They're just, oh, mom's being mom and she's mean and I hate her.
Yeah. Like I used to get that because I said so.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, I didn't realize how much metadata there was in everything until I was researching for this episode. So I don't know that even parents are aware of how much data is attached to everything, every single thing. Longitude, latitude.
Yeah, your exact location, what device you're using, what operating system you're on, what phone provider you use, right? Are you on Verizon, AT&T, whatever it is, right? So all of that,
It's wild.
It's a lot.
The last thing we're going to talk about today is mental health. So this one is a little bit upsetting, honestly. Kids tie so much of their worth back to social media feedback, and it's kind of what you were saying earlier, like, what are you trying to get out of this? You're trying to get validation, and I think a lot of the times their friends are doing it, so they're doing it, and look at me, like, does everyone like me kind of thing. But the increased suicide rates, the depression among young children, and I know COVID didn't really help the situation. And I did find one statistic from the US Surgeon General in 2025, teens who use social media for more than 3 hours a day double their risk of experiencing mental health problems, including symptoms of depression and anxiety. So I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about that and the influence social media has on mental health.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So the first part of it comes from the engagement and the need for validation. When kids are growing up and they're in high school and they're teenagers and they're navigating interpersonal relationships, and that's already a very fragile process. Coming out of COVID, kids are less likely to know how to interact with each other or to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and awkward situations. I think that there's a bigger fear attached to that. And I think it's because they stopped asking, but what's the real deal there? Like, so what?
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem? When I tell my kids it's just as awkward for you to go up to someone and ask them something than it is for them to come up to you and ask you something. And if somebody comes up to you and interacts with you, you don't even think twice about it.
Right.
So why would you think twice about it in interacting with someone, right? So having this makes them go online a lot more. And because these algorithms learn from our behavior and learn from what we're watching and what we're searching, it kind of snowballs into this negative content effect that's hard to break out of. And so it's really teaching kids to think about, what do you want from this? Is it engagement? Is it validation? And helping them find ways to first find value in themselves. And then to say, you can get this validation without being online. And it's up to us to promote those in-person engagements. It's up to us to say, hey, instead of being on the computer, and I'm a little bit guilty of that because sometimes my kid is playing video games with the kid across the street. And I'm like, why are you just turn off the computer, go outside, knock on your friend's door, and go play outside?
Yeah.
You have the same kind of interaction. So just go do that. But it's up to us to promote these kinds of interactions. And I think after COVID, we kind of shied away from that, from the play dates, the planning group trips. Let's go to the pumpkin farm or apple picking, but invite a bunch of your friends, or just have your friends over to do whatever, go play in the backyard or go draw pictures or make bracelets. And I think it's really getting them used to those interpersonal relationships again that helps move away from the spiral of negative behavior and negative self-worth. And that is super related, right? It's very connected to how these algorithms work and how, again, they need to understand that they have the power to stop this. So if you're posting for positive reinforcement, get that in person. Bake a tray of cookies and go take it to your elderly neighbor or something like that. You're going to feel great about yourself. They might hate it if you suggest something like this, but after they do it, they're like, oh, okay. But it's really making them realize that. And I think they don't see an alternative. And then because they don't see an alternative, they don't see a way out. So it's up to us to provide those alternatives and to really make them understand that they can take control back. They have the control. The algorithm doesn't control them. They control the algorithm. So, but it has to be a deliberate effort. It has to be a very conscious exercise of, this is what I'm going to do. And I think, especially with younger kids, setting challenges like I did with my daughter. And I mean, I tried and it worked. It was like a Hail Mary kind of like, let's see what happens. But it really opened up the door to have discussions about feeds and the content that we're exposed to and what it does to us, how it makes us feel, and how you might get very temporary relief for thinking that there's somebody out there that's suffering as much as you are. But in the end, there's going to be two people suffering when there could be just one or none.
What do you think is most damaging to children's mental health between YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok?
God.
Like, is there, or are they all have their own?
First of all, I'm not an expert in mental health. Just from a mom perspective.
Yeah, from your experience, what is the scariest?
Honestly, I don't know. I would say probably something like TikTok and Snapchat. And I mean, Instagram now is getting up there with the reels and stuff. It's pretty much the same thing. I think the risks with Snapchat is that there's less opportunities for us to enforce those parental controls and to really make sure that they're not engaging in any behavior that they shouldn't be or exposed to anything that they shouldn't be, because everything gets deleted and it's not there. So the interactions are very temporary. And then TikTok, because I think that it's the rapid dopamine hit that they say, right? It's like there's really no time to process. If you're on YouTube, videos are typically, I don't know, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes more, right? And so you have more time to process that information and to feel all the feelings. But on TikTok, it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds, right? Even now with them having the extended videos that go up to 3 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, nobody engages with those.
Right.
You watch the first 30 seconds and you're out of there.
Absolutely.
Like, it has to be extremely, extremely pulling and enticing for you to, and even most of the time we just press the button to get it 2 times speed, just get to the point, tell me what I want to know and move on to the next one. So we even do that. And so I think we're adults, right? Our frontal lobes are fully developed. We can process this. Kids don't. And I think that's, in terms of mental health and development, that's the biggest danger, is there's no time to process all this. There's no time to engage with the feelings and really differentiate between, am I bored or am I really sad? And these are two very different things. They're not pleasant feelings, but they're very different things. And so I think going back to, what are you trying to get out of this? What is it that you want? And really identifying in yourself what the difference is of, is this happy? Is this excited? Is this angry? Is this sad? And so knowing that you have the power to take that control back. I feel like I said that a lot today.
Well, it's a really good message. And honestly, it's not something that I had considered before. So I think that's great. And you're so right about the TikTok and the constant dopamine hits. All right. Well, I think this has been wonderful. To wrap up, I was going to ask you like a few quick hitting questions, and I didn't prep you for them. So I apologize. So one internet rule every family should have.
I don't think there's a rule that everybody should have, but I think that everybody should have a family policy, right? So
that's great,
because every household is different. So it's not one rule applies to everybody, but there should be a consensus. Everybody should get together and there should be rules put in place that are discussed, that kids understand why they're there, that parents agree with, and making it a negotiation, making it a family conversation, a household conversation, rather than this is how it is and it applies to everybody on the face of the earth, because we're all different. We all have different circumstances. So I don't think there's one rule, but everybody should have some kind of policy or set of rules in place.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And it's not like, this is what I'm telling you, like it's collaborative with the children.
And you might have to give up some stuff because of that.
Yeah, but again, that builds the trust.
Yeah.
This, I don't know if there is one. Most underrated online safety tool. Can you think of anything?
Parental controls, for sure.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I really do. I don't think people are aware that they exist. I don't think that even if people know that they're there, they take time to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think parents rely more on setting the rules and saying, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to watch this, rather than going in and really trying to see how detailed these parental controls can be, right? We have an iPad where we have a family account, and I can say, hey, I have these kids, these are their ages. It will cut off or create boundaries in what apps they can download and what they can do. But we tend to treat these as one-off settings. We put it in and then we don't look at things individually. And I feel like that's probably the most underused thing, is that we know they're out there, but they're not easy to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just tend to create rules and then expect the kids to self-enforce, which
Right.
is not easy.
Yeah, and that's true because I'll tell you, it was really difficult to figure out how to set up a YouTube Kids account and then set up the settings based on each child.
Yep.
Took more time than I would have liked. One internet trend or social media trend that makes you nervous.
All of the trends, like anything that is labeled as a trend makes me nervous. Like, whoever thought that eating laundry detergent pods was a good idea? I don't understand. So anything that has the word trend attached to it makes my skin crawl a little bit, because it tends to be that somebody came up with it for some reason and then it just spreads like wildfire. It's super hard to control. And because kids don't have this mechanism of critical thinking, of stopping and questioning everything, they just do it. So yeah, it's super scary because there's trends out there. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, eating a laundry pod is not my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So yeah.
That's very true.
Anything that's a trend.
Yeah, and they're going to assume that it's safe.
Yeah.
Because it's a trend. One thing that parents can stop worrying about when it comes to social media.
Nothing. I don't think there's...
Well, you kind of convinced me to stop worrying so much about posting pictures of my children.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's good things that come from it, right? There's positive interactions. I think the data, there's a lot of concern with our data that's out there. Honestly, I don't think that individually that poses a big risk, because bad actors aren't looking for individual, they're looking to big hits.
Interesting. No, that's really good information. That was all that I had for you today. Do you have anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No. It was a pleasure. I loved it. I had so much fun. This was my first ever podcast. So,
oh, awesome.
Yes. So I've listened to them, but I've never been in one. So this was new for me.
Well, I really appreciate you being here. Again, this is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and you were such a great guest, so knowledgeable with so much information, and I'm rethinking a bunch of stuff, which is always great when a new perspective is brought to the forefront. So thank you all for listening. Tell your millennial mom friends, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Momming as a Millennial. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend or on social. You can find more from me at contemplativemama.com. Until next time.